our admin meeting for Tuesday, April 12th. Annie, could you do us a roll call before we dive in?
Be happy to.
Thank
I
you.
have myself, Annie Cathy, Andrew Torney, Anna Conley, Chris Lonsberry, David Strohmeyer, Dave Wall, Jamar Gabrett, Jason Emery, Kylo Leonards, Melissa Fisher, Sarah Bell, Cindy Kennedy, Leidy Wagner, Martin Kidston, MCAT. We got Josh Slotnick and Allison France. Did I miss anybody else out there? All right, commissioners.
All right, thank you. So before we dive in, do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, our first action item is a consent agenda. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I am ready to make the motion here unless anyone has comment on this. I'd move that we approve the consent agenda.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thanks. Now we have a Dave Wall double header.
Double header. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good, good. That's good to know. It's good to see everyone. So I guess the first item here, I think, is the memorandum of understanding we have with the state. This is a memorandum of understanding between us and the State Department of Administration to permit the county to use basically their procurement procedures to buy goods and services using state contracts. This is something that we've been doing, but our county attorney's office, especially Dylan, who is fantastic, has noticed that we hadn't actually completed this MOU with the state. We really should. So this is something they would like us to do. So yeah, this is just to kind of make it official. This would be the chair to sign, or acting chair would be fine. Then once I get it back, I will send this out to the State Department of Administration, and they'll sign it, and I'll get it recorded. And then our, oh, go ahead, Judge.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Could you give an example of procurement via the state, that so we sort of mentally have something to latch on to of what this might look like in practice?
Absolutely. Vehicles, for one. You know, the state will go out with an RFP for all kinds of vehicles, including law enforcement vehicles, public works type vehicles, all kinds of things. And this way we can say, well, you know, they've already gone through the RFP process, gotten a great cost from a certain dealer. We're not going to get better than that. Let's just go and use the state contract, use their terms, and get that cost. And it's just like us going through an RFP process, but it's already been done. There are times, yeah, there are times where things are so localized, you know, we want to make it really for us, that we should still maybe use our own process, even if there's a state contract. But there are plenty of times, office supplies, office paper, vehicles, lots and lots of stuff, where we can really just use the state, who already goes through a very robust, good procurement process, and save our departments some time. And it'll end up saving the county some money most likely, and do it a little bit easier.
Great, thank you. That's a good example. And this sounds like a good act of efficiency. If the state's already doing the work, we don't need to duplicate it.
That's right. I agree. And they do a very good job at that.
Okay, I would move that we authorize the acting chair to sign the MOU.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. And you got another one.
I got another one. Yeah, this one's funner, in my opinion.
Right.
But I have kind of a weird idea of fun sometimes. These are, we are going to be replacing, if you approve them, our purchasing and contracts policy with two new policies. I've separated those out because having purchasing and contracts in one policy was proving to be pretty confusing for understandable reasons. So I thought it'd be better to actually have two separate policies, one just for purchasing and those kind of procedures, and one for contracting. Because even though it's all under the umbrella term of procurement, those really are two separate procedures.
Do these kind of break down around goods versus services?
They are both for goods and services. So there is some breakdown, but there's actually less of a breakdown than there was before. That was also, especially in the contracts policy, that was causing some confusion. But I can go over some of the highlights and some of the differences and some of the general principles I was thinking of, if you don't mind. I don't mean to have this
And
take a long
we have
time.
plenty of time.
Okay, fantastic. I'll just hoard up the whole hour. No. But in essence, I really wanted there to be some kind of general principles in this purchasing policy, especially. You and I and everyone, when we're dealing with our own personal purchases at home, there are times where we just need to go for the cheapest thing, and that's understandable, and we can do that. But when we make purchases, we know that the use of our dollars means something, and we use them carefully, and we choose who we spend money with carefully based on maybe we'd rather buy from a local company, or maybe we'd rather buy from a women-owned business or something like that. Voting with your dollars, so to speak. These things, we don't want to just spend it carelessly. We want to spend it with real care. And I thought that same care ought to be taken by the county. In the old policy, this is all understandable, and it's how most governments do things. It was really, everything was based on cost. And we could also, use some criteria like how long a company has been in business and things like that. But I really wanted to flesh out that our purchasing should reflect our values as a county. And for that reason, things like environmental sustainability should be important in our purchasing decisions. Things like our JEDI principles that we use, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, those should be important too. All of these principles that as a county government we've decided are important to us and we want to promote, I do too. And I think this is a way our office can kind of help to meet those goals by putting this down in policy. So that, I think, is the main portion of the policy. I'm already assuming that you all have read every page of both the purchasing and contracts policy, so I won't go through it page by page. But
Multiple times.
We went to coffee. We talked about it from 7 to 8 this morning.
oh, fantastic. I'm so glad. That's great. You'll notice a lot of it. I wish she was still here. Diana Mineta helped the purchasing policy especially so much. I'm going to have to send her an email out in California or something, because she really was a great help to me, as well as, of course, the county attorney's office as always, and risk and benefits and things like that. So I think half the policy deals with environmental sustainability and some guidelines on how to be more sustainable in our purchasing. I've also wanted to give a little more flexibility to our departments in their purchasing. So we had thresholds of dollar amounts where you had to go through certain procedures. What I've done is I've moved those thresholds up a little bit to give our departments a little more flexibility. So in this new policy, from $0 to $20,000 as a purchase, they don't have to go through any formal process. They can just go through a reputable county vendor. And this is a wonderful opportunity for our departments to decide these are the values that are important to us. And so we're going to look at cost, which is always important to everybody. We are not doing away with cost as an important factor here, of course, but other things too. So it gives them a little more flexibility. Then from $20,000 to $40,000, we're going to require a written quote. That's, again, we move that up. That used to be 10 to 20, now it's 20 to 40.
What did the first threshold used to be?
0 to 10.
Okay.
0 to 10, and now it's 0 to 20.
Thanks.
Sure, of course. So from 20 to 40, they'll do a quote. And then the limited solicitation, which used to start at $20,000, which I thought it made sense back in the day, but this, the old policy was like 2014 or something like that. We just have to change with the times. So now a limited solicitation will start at $40,000 instead of 20, and go up to the limit of $80,000, which is where we have to start following state statute. And so starting at $80,000, things will be pretty much the same as they were before, whether we're talking about an RFP or an RFQ, et cetera. But for those lower limits, we're giving departments just a little more flexibility. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, great, it does, and I think also reflects the kind of financial moment we're in rising costs. And I do want to say just this phrase, purchasing reflects our values. I'd like to have that stenciled on your door. It's so great.
Yeah.
And I know in the past I referred to you as this, in a sports metaphor, as the attacking defender.
Yeah,
Scoring goals
I like
when you're
that.
just playing defense. I mean, I think of an auditor as defense. You're guarding us and protecting us from fraud and financial mismanagement and making sure rules are obeyed. And what you're doing with these procurement policies is actually moving us forward, not just playing defense. And it's really fantastic to see our values made real through purchasing of all things. So good job.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much. Yeah, it definitely, I've had sort of a change of heart over the years about, when somebody comes to you and said these policies are kind of hard to follow, there's a few ways you could go about that, right? You could say, well, tough, you're going to follow these policies, or you can have a little humility and say, okay, well, maybe we ought to talk about these policies. Maybe there is room for revision if it makes sense, as long as we're still protecting the taxpayers. And so I think using that humility and really looking at them and making them, I want people in the county to follow policy. And so if this makes it easier to follow policy, we're still protecting taxpayer dollars and we're following our values. I think it's just a win-win-win-win. So the contracts policy is even more exciting. Yeah, this is definitely the boring part of the show today. The one change I made a few changes I made in the contracts policy had to do with the threshold where you really had to go and get a written contract instead of an invoice. It used to be $25,000 for goods and $10,000 for services. And indeed, service contracts, they're a little bit more risk, but man, did that cause confusion. That caused massive confusion. Yeah, come on in, whoever's coming in, absolutely.
Sorry.
Hey, Cindy,
Hello.
good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
She's just in time to offer comment on the contracts policy.
I appreciate that very much. I appreciate that. So now we have it where it's $25,000 for both goods and services. It's just a lot less confusing. I'll get a lot less questions about, well, this contract has both goods and services. So how do we break that down? And things like that. So it's just it's nice and simple and clean. The other change is we do know that independently elected officials really can sign their own contracts. And so I just wanted to make sure I put that in the contracts policy so that could be known. But I also wanted to really emphasize that even when that's the case, and I got to tell you, I'm not going to sign my own contracts. I'm a big fan. I think it's the auditor in me. I'm a big fan of separation of duties and separation of powers. But it certainly by law, independent elected officials can do that. But they still have to go through legal review and risk review to make sure that the county's protected. And very importantly, we still need to make sure that all public contracts are recorded. These are contracts that belong to the people of Missoula County, and they have a right to see them. And it's pretty hard to do that if they're not recorded. So I just wanted to make sure that that was pretty obvious in the contracts policy. Were there any questions about the contract? It's much shorter, at least, than the purchasing policy. Not quite as fun.
No, this sounds like a couple solid pieces of work. Thanks for everything that you've done on this, Dave. And I echo Josh's comments also about the role of auditor here at Missoula County and what that means. So thanks.
Thank
I
you.
would move that we approve the new Missoula County purchasing and contracts policy.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
Thank you much. I appreciate it. We'll get this out to everyone.
Great, thanks.
Excellent. Okay, Cindy.
Good morning, and
Oh.
thanks, Dave, for the information on the purchasing and contract policies. It was very, very informative. So I am here today to request that the board approve the chair to sign a resolution to adopt a program income plan for the Missoula County CDBG Housing Rehabilitation Grant that affords the District 11 Human Resource Council to collect program income from repayment of housing rehab loans. And I can provide some background if you have questions or if you'd like to know a little bit more about what this all means.
So does does this mean this is a revolving loan fund, and when people pay back those loans, we can then use that money to give out to other folks to do housing rehab?
Absolutely. And the funding would go to the Housing Resource Council, not to the county.
What does a person have to, is it an AMI thing or a house? What is it they have to be or do to qualify for such a loan? And what are the terms of the loans?
Yes. So this is community development block grant funding. So it is for low to moderate income households. So the household has to qualify. The homeowner has to be a homeowner. They have to live in the house. That has to be their primary residence. And then we can provide rehabilitation for health and safety issues in the household. For instance, roof repairs, which is probably one of the more common activities that we use these funds for, but also making a home accessible. We've dealt with mold remediation. We're working on a project in Sealy Lake right now where the house, the entry to the house is decks, and the decks are rotting. So we need to replace those decks. That's a safety issue. And so there's a process that we have to go through to get folks eligible. HRC are the experts in doing that. And then we send all the documentation to the state and they do an approval. We have to do environmental reviews, which was the items that were on the consent agenda for those projects. And then the terms are pretty simple. I believe it's 1% simple interest. The loan is deferred until the homeowner either transfers ownership or is no longer using that residence as their primary residence.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so those loans can be sitting there accruing very small amount of interest for a few years, and they're really kind of a lifeline for a lot of households.
What the percentage of AMI a household has to be to qualify for this?
80%.
They have to be 80% or less.
Correct.
Cindy, how do people even find out about this?
Well, we really don't have to do a lot to advertise this program, but we do have the means to do that. HRC has a long list of households that would like to tap into this program. And the challenge that we have with the way the state operates this, and we are actually in the process of hoping to reapply for more funding because this grant we've had for a little while and it's coming to an end. It's non-competitive. There's no deadline. We can just reapply. But right now, the state only lets us do one project at a time. And that's a little bit problematic because it can take us a while to get a project eligible, to get the state to approve it, to do the environmental review, all that fun stuff. And so, we definitely are trying to, hopefully the state will change that model and so that we can do more than one project at a time, but they don't give us a set amount of funding. It's a very different kind of grant. And what
does it mean to do one project at a time? Does that mean that you can't have more than one outstanding loan, or that you can? It does.
So you have to wait for the house to be sold before you can make another loan?
No. We can only do the rehab project one at a time. So it's not tied to the loan. That's not part of it.
Tied to the physical construction?
Correct. Yes. So we have a project. We had a project in West Missoula last year. It took a long time because of the pandemic to get it done. So, and there were multiple pieces to the project, multiple contractors involved. We could not even start on another project. We couldn't even go through the approval process until all that construction was done. and we closed out that project, and then we can move on to the next project. So by only being able to do one project at a time, it just takes we spent almost 2 years on one project, and we
Oh,
could,
so
and
what's
so we
the
have this long
backlog?
list. What's that?
Backlog must be incredible. There's like 100
Yes.
people behind.
Yeah, so the press has picked up on this program a couple times, so folks see the news articles, and then HRC gets inundated with phone calls. And so they do have a long list. If they ever get to a point where folks have moved on, they're like, oh, we gave up on this a long time ago. We have strategies for marketing, but we haven't really needed to do that because word of mouth has allowed us to really not have to go out and search for eligible homeowners.
Doesn't sound like that's the problem.
Yeah, so what's the solution, Cindy, in terms of remedying this ridiculous inability to multitask?
So
Yeah.
my understanding, and I'm going to confirm this with the state, that this is what they did. They reached out and asked a few folks, and I was one of them, to provide some feedback about how they could improve their programming. And overwhelmingly across the state, folks said you need to change this model. And so what they promised they were going to do, and that's what I don't know if they actually have done yet, and I'll find out, is they promised to award a certain amount, a set like $600,000. And then we can do as many projects as we want. We still have to go through the process of getting them approved and everything. But as long as we don't overspend that $600,000, we could spend down the entire grant in 1 year, for instance, because we could have multiple projects going at the same time. Of course, the challenge, and especially in today's climate, is finding all the contractors to do the work. And the challenge also is with these small projects. A lot of contractors don't like doing small projects, but they also have to be SAM registered. They have to go through the federal government and make sure that they meet all of the federal government procurement requirements, and some small contractors don't want to do that either. So there's definitely challenges that make this program difficult to have multiple projects going at the same time. But hopefully, we're working through all of that, and we're getting better at it, and we're developing a list of contractors that are willing to do this work, which is great, because as that list grows, we'll have more ability to do a lot more projects.
Cindy, are you saying the state has changed their pattern and now they give out a set amount of money and they don't do one project at a time, or we're hoping for that to happen?
We're hoping for that. That was what they promised they were going to do. I don't know for sure if that's how it's shaped out, because we have been spending down this first grant. Now we're ready to dive.
Oh, you're frozen. Oh, there you're back. Well, I would say if there's a way in which we could write a letter or help prod folks at the state level along, it would be worth thinking
Yes,
about.
that would, if you would pen such a letter, we would gladly sign it. And
Okay.
a last question on this: is there a way, if a person is interested in this, they can look up somewhere on a chart to find out where they are at AMI to see if they're eligible before diving into the quick and efficient process over there at HRC?
Yeah, the HUD income limits, it's not exactly the easiest system to navigate or understand. HRC or myself would be the best phone call to make to just check, and really it's not a cumbersome process to just kind of get a general idea if they're eligible. A lot of these home owners, there's no question they're eligible in terms of the income limits. So that's if they want to sleuth around on HUD's website, that's about the only other option. I think it'd be easier to call us or HRC.
I will pass that on. Easier to call you.
Cindy, one last question. So given what you said about maybe challenges associated with contractors being interested in smallish projects, if there was the ability to do multiple projects at the same time, is there the possibility that There could be some economy of scale such that multiple projects could be combined that would actually entice a contractor to do something. So instead of the model of one contractor, different contractor for each project, you could bid or go after multiple of these at the same time.
Yeah, potentially. The challenge with that is that a lot of these projects are very different. Like the one that we have in Sealy Lake are decks and windows and roof repairs, whereas the one that we had in Western Missoula was mold and egress windows. So, you know, definitely, like if we have projects where, okay, we have 5 projects that need roofs, that's a great way to go about it. But it doesn't always work out that way. And we also want to be able to address you know, people that are on the wait list and not skip people. So kind of going through that list and not just grouping all of the roof folks and all of the window folk, you know what I mean? That's definitely something we could try to address, but it might not always shake out that way. But it's a great idea.
All right, I would move that we authorize the acting chair to sign the resolution.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for all your information, Cindy.
You bet. Thank you. Have a good
Thanks.
day.
And yet another Cindy,
Yeah.
right here in person, and
Yeah,
a different spelling.
Downstairs doing union negotiations, so.
Man, no one loves that.
Yeah. So I am here to ask you to sign the task order. We just got $40,000 in grants from DPHHS to do this is, as I think a lot of people know, we do a community health assessment every 5 years, and then following that is a community health improvement plan. And then we also do our updated workforce development plan and strategic planning. And so this $40,000 is to help us fund those activities.
Great.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah. This is a really positive thing.
Yeah.
Quite easy. Yes, take the money, do the good work.
I would move that we authorize the acting chair to sign the task order.
Second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for walking.
Yeah.
through
Thank you.
everything.
Thank you.
Cindy Kennedy, that was kind of good.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Austin, do we have any correspondence? Noah?
No, not today.
Hey,
Oh, we've
I
got
wish I
a
could say this is a good sign.
deputy county attorney just arrived in the
As a
room.
person, it's a good sign, but usually,
Vivian was covering for me, so thank you.
oh,
Anna.
okay.
Apparently coming in at the last minute.
Oh, great.
Yes, you are.
Any discussion items we have not yet hit upon?
Let's see here. We lost our one representative of the media. So,
On to something more interesting.
yes.
Is there anything more interesting? I'm
No,
sure.
there's not. There's not.
Okay, well, with that, I believe we're,
Thanks, everyone.
thanks, everybody.